what is actually the Pestilence. We're shooting a couple other videos that'll be put up in the next couple of days. The sound was off for one of the videos completely, so we got to redo one of those. And we have some other gaming stuff that we're going to watch that we got requested. I know the Family Guy video and the other Fable video is not equalized. I understand the audio is not good. You can stop telling me now. I'm aware, but I still had to put them up. So yeah, there's that. So SCP-049, what actually is the Pestilence? The Play Doctor Questions and Theories SCP animation. That's my fucking guy, SCP-049. That's my guy. That's my favorite SCP. Let's do it.
SCP-049, also known as the Plague Doctor, is an SCP Foundation fan favorite. This charming anomalous surgeon can terrify with a glance and kill with a touch. In terms of his origins, his methods, and his thought process around a disease he calls the Pestilence, this is one of the most mysterious SCPs out there. And thankfully, we didn't have to investigate this one alone. We made a community post asking you, the fans of SCP Explained, to give us your questions and theories about the good doctor that we all hope doesn't give house calls. And you didn't disappoint. Let's grab our masks and hand sanitizer and take a look at what you had to say about SCP-049. First, the questions. Bob Candle asked, why does he refuse to tell researchers about the Pestilence? That's a good question, and also one of the biggest mysteries surrounding 049's lore. For the uninitiated, the Pestilence, also known as the Great Dying, is the nickname given to an unknown disease that SCP-049 has dedicated his life to curing, whatever curing means to him. When asked by Foundation researchers, 049 refuses to give up even the most basic information about the Pestilence, such as how he diagnoses it, what its effects are, or how it's transmitted. It seems that part of the reason that 049 refuses to tell researchers about it is that he apparently assumes that they, as fellow doctors, inherently know what he's talking about when he brings up the Pestilence. He's acted with confusion and frustration during questioning, and 049 seems to believe that the Pestilence is such common knowledge among medical practitioners that it would be a waste of time to explain it, if he even had the words to do so. DadGamer56 asked, why is he so cooperative if humans have the Pestilence he wants to cure so bad? One of the
that's actually a pretty good
most remarkable things about 049 is how reasonable he's been with Foundation staff in the past. He's polite, friendly, and treats his jailers as equals when he's not murdering them and turning them into zombies.
But I mean, hey, they have the Pestilence, so it's gotta happen.
He believes humans have the Pestilence. Why is he so cooperative with them? Thankfully, the answer here is simple. While 049 believes that the Pestilence is widespread, he doesn't believe that every human is carrying it. In fact, when he was first contained by the Foundation and brought into an SCP facility, he complimented the staff on how little Pestilence there was inside the building compared to the outside. While we don't know what leads 049 to think a person is healthy or diseased, we do know there is a distinction, and he's cooperative with those he sees as healthy.
It's so funny because, like, he clearly has some just kind of germ phobia, and he's like, it's pretty fucking clean in here.
Star Doggo Gaming asked, how would he interact with 610, aka the flesh that hates? I wonder if he would view the infected as Pestilence. Another great question. 610 is an extremely dangerous Sarkic SCP that presents as a zombie-like virus that causes horrific fleshy mutations. Because of the extremely high infection rate of the flesh that hates, it's been quarantined in its present location in the isolated Siberian wilderness. While it would be too dangerous to bring anyone or anything into contact with the flesh, we're betting that 049 would find the flesh utterly repulsive. Whether even he would be able to cure this horrific infection is another question. The flesh that hates is best left alone at all costs. mCypher50 asked, SCP-049's notebook appears to be written in a language no human can decipher. Could another SCP like 343 or 662 decode the notebook? The answer to this is a solid maybe. These two SCPs, known as God and Mr. Deeds respectively, may be able to translate the contents of 049's mysterious leather-bound notebook. The problem is, given that we've seen 049 is a pretty terrible doctor when it comes to anything other than raising mutant zombies from the dead, the contents of his notebook might just be as useless as the interviews with him have proven to be.
Dude, I'm telling you, he's the greatest one, right? Because he does, like, nothing right. Like, all he can do is make zombies and mutate humans. Kill them on sight. That's really it, dog. He don't do nothing else. He still talks about bile. He's a terrible doctor. Bile is not real.
That said, it probably is worth a try, just to find out if he's actually been pretending to write this whole time. Green Angel Snake YT asked, do other living creatures like pigs, cats, or literally any animal have this thing he calls the pestilence? What even are the living things he considers cured? To the best of our knowledge, 049 only believes humans can contract the pestilence. How do we know this? This leads us to our next question. Mia the Hot Dog asked, if he touches the immortal lizard, will the lizard die and be rid of disease, or will the lizard be immune, or will it attack the doctor? The Foundation did attempt to terminate 682 with 049, but the effort was unsuccessful. 049, when encountering the lizard, commented that only humans can contract the pestilence. When he tried to touch 682, the lizard swiped at him with its claws. 049 then requested to leave, and later interviews revealed that the Plague Doctor felt emotionally disturbed by his time with 682. GamerDuckYT asked, where did he originally come from? While evidence suggests that 049 is extremely old and very well traveled, he was first discovered by the Foundation in the town of Montauban in southern France. Given that he speaks fluent medieval French as his first language, it's safe to assume that France is probably his country of origin and could have existed for hundreds of years, if not longer. Interestingly, his famous Plague Doctor appearance is more similar to those first worn by Italian doctors in the 17th century, which only deepens the mystery of SCP-049. Garrett Eborn asked, why does he insist that he isn't doing harm when he's clearly in violation of his Hippocratic Oath?
What Hippocratic Oath? Do you know what the Hippocratic Oath is? What is that? What? That was written, by people. How is that his Hippocratic Oath?
049 does seem to regret the harm he causes, but he also believes that the small sacrifices are necessary in the quest to cure the pestilence. Also, a fun little history lesson. Given that 049's knowledge of medicine appears to be medieval, meaning potentially as early as the 5th century, he actually would have predated the Hippocratic Oath coming into universal use by doctors, which didn't become widespread until the 19th century, despite the oath itself first being created around 400 BC. Phoenix Fane asked, if he has to wear gloves of any kind, would he still kill you? All evidence seems to point to no. Only skin-to-skin contact with 049 is fatal, so a good pair of gloves could really be a lifesaver. Alice Verdugo asked, what would happen if he went one-on-one with a shy guy? Would he cure him or not do anything? Well, we can't know for sure, because SCP-096, aka the Shy Guy, isn't human. It's likely that 049 wouldn't even consider him infected. If the two came into contact, it would probably result in a stalemate, much like the time SCP-096 faced off against SCP-682. However, if it did come to blows between the two, 096 is undeniably a much more dangerous combatant, and may be able to narrowly defeat the Plague Doctor in a direct confrontation while in its rage state. Anything Goes asked, if he died, could he bring himself back to life or have something prepared to bring himself back to life? Like a lot of anomalies, it seems that 049 is abnormally hard to kill, given that he's seemingly impervious to most physical damage. However, seeing as 049's resurrection is both a lengthy medieval process and never brings its subjects back correctly, it's likely that if someone could successfully put 049 down, he wouldn't get back up. I'm Not Coming asked, we know that doctors are wearing masks to protect patients, but is his mask part of his skull or face? All of 049's clothes, including his Plague Doctor mask, are technically part of his body. The mask is part of its bone structure, and the other clothes are like layers of skin. Which leads us nicely to the next question. Requiem asked, if the clothing around him is skin, does he shed it? We're not sure, but it's definitely a thought we all wish we could forget. Oh, God. Now, let's take a look at some of your more interesting theories. Clarence Ilium theorized pestilence is sin and he's trying to take it away. This is certainly an interesting theory. While we can't find much in his file that suggests 049 views the pestilence as a result of sinful behavior or the concept of sin itself, it's worth considering that his medical background seems to come from medieval times. Medical science was in its infancy back then, and many still believe that diseases were the result of loose morals or even demonic interference, so there might be some truth to this theory.
Or just bad weather, or bad attitude, or fragile constitution. Like, they had really every excuse. Like, if you were late all the time, they'd be like, maybe try being more timely, and that would probably help some of this. Go take a walk outside every once in a while, and it might just go away.
Thomas Hess theorized, I feel like he isn't really bad. All he wants to do is help and cure everyone.
Nah, he's the homie,
his cure
for sure.
is death. If we're defining bad as a malicious desire to cause harm for its own sake, then this theory holds a lot of water. For all intents and purposes, it does seem that 049 does genuinely want to cure his patients of the pestilence, and he does seem to express remorse when they die. However, by his own admission, his cure is imperfect, and he hasn't found full success in curing the disease without causing death yet. Cat and Dog Live theorized, the Plague Doctor has seen the end of the world and travels in a loop back in time aiming to eventually stop it. The pestilence is the way each human's impact on the end of the world is, and once he touches their flesh they realize this and die of the realization of what they've done. The Plague Doctor may be looking for a human, or an SCP, that is pestilence-free. For what reason, we don't know. We don't have an awful lot to say about this one because there's no real evidence either way. But given that time travel does seem to be possible in the SCP Foundation universe, it's a cool possibility that we definitely can't rule out. It does, however, leave a lot of loose ends about the gaps in 049.
Excuse me. I had the pestilence.
049's knowledge, such as the fact he doesn't know about the Black Death. Vladimir Lenin theorized, he's the best doctor ever. He cures depression, pestilence, and sometimes his patients even come back from the dead. 5-star rating. This is certainly an extremely charitable way to view SCP-049.
Charitable? Nah, that's
one
accurate.
that he himself would likely very much appreciate.
Hell yeah.
However, considering he changes his patients into mindless, zombified mutants, a better course of action may just be to attend therapy.
Your opinion duly noted. I will note it, but I disagree.
Chaotix theorized, the pestilence is death. He is literally trying to cure death. Well, this could be one interpretation of why 049 resurrects his patients as zombies. Death is something that affects all living non-anomalous humans, and 049 seems to be selective on which humans it identifies as being infected with the pestilence. As a result, it is unlikely that the pestilence refers to death itself. And death is also likely a preferable alternative to being turned into a zombie by 049's experimental treatments.
Says who? Can't hurt if I'm already dead, can it? Come on, man.
The Blue Guardian theorized, the pestilence is an entity in our collective unconsciousness, described in SCP-5000-Y. This is an extremely interesting theory, and one that could hold water too. If you check out our series on SCP-5000, you'll find that the Foundation discovered a being known as IT, hiding inside the collective unconsciousness of humankind. While the Foundation doesn't know about this in our dimension, it's possible that SCP-049 does, and simply doesn't realize that everyone is infected with it yet. But if this is the case, and SCP-049 realizes that the whole world is infected, he's likely to become a much more dangerous anomaly that refuses to cooperate with anyone. Moonleafs 430 theorized, the pestilence is the Foundation, and 049 is a disciple of the Scarlet King.
That would be fucking cool.
This is another incredibly
really
fun
cool
theory. However, there are two big problems. The first is that 049 has historically identified people with no Foundation affiliation as being infected with the pestilence. And the second, even more important issue is that SCP-049 is a highly scientific creature, whereas the Scarlet King hates the very idea of science with a burning passion. As a result, SCP-049 and the Scarlet King are likely natural enemies. And finally, Zerthrax theorized his theme song should probably be Gangsta's Paradise. It's just a speculation, though. On this theory, we wholeheartedly agree. And there you have it.
Very good, dude. I like the attitude that this SCP brings to people. That is my favorite part about it. Same thing kind of like with Cthulhu, the attitude Cthulhu brings to people. It's very enjoyable for me, so that's what I like the most. I like all the theories. It's intentionally left blank for you to fill in yourself, but it leads you in all the kind of same direction. And in the end, saying, I don't know, he'll have to tell us when he figures it out, is always a good answer. Thanks for the request. I really appreciated it. And we're moving on to other things. I'll holler at you guys. Peace.